Let's pick things up there for tonight's Political Insider. Joining me, Matthew Brodsky, Senior Middle East Analyst for Wikistrat. Matthew, the election process in Israel is different from here in the U.S. Explain how it works.
Well, they have a parliamentary system. The parliament there is called the Knesset. It has 120 seats, and you have a bunch of parties that are vying for a number of seats. 61, you need a coalition to gain a majority and then to govern. So you have the Likud party, that's kind of the center-right party, and then the major party is Zionist Union, or Labor Party, and that's Herzog, that's the center-left party. And then they're getting a specific number of votes, and then the horse trading begins after that, after the elections tonight, where they come into coalition talks with other partners, and they try to bring people on board to get to the magic number of 61. The prime minister is usually the #1 person on the list of the biggest party that is given the ability to go form a coalition.
Now, just days before the election, Prime Minister Netanyahu was trailing Isaac Herzog. Why do voters like Herzog? Is there a political shift happening in the country?
The political shift actually in the last few days, and this is what the polls didn't pick up, is the shift had been to the center. The center left and the center right, Likud and Zionist Union, both took votes away from the right. If you're Likud, they took it from the right, from some of the parties there. And the same thing happened on the left. So there was really a march to the center of the Israeli political system. What Herzog represented at Zionist Union was essentially he's not Netanyahu, and he would be able to perhaps chart a different course of relations with the United States, at least on a political level.
Now, many say the results are too close to call. Is Netanyahu's victory claim premature tonight?
Could be, because we don't have the final results, but those should be coming fairly soon. But it's very difficult when you get into the numbers and you look at the math. It's really hard to see how Herzog can pull this off. There's simply more center-right parties, or parties that are to the right of center, that Likud can link up with to begin with. And Kulanu, a newer party that used to be from Likud, which also includes Michael Oren, the former ambassador to the United States, that party will end up being the kingmaker, most definitely, with 9 or 10 seats. And they're far more likely to go to the Likud. It would take a lot more for Zionist Union to do it. The handicap on this, before this weekend, at the last polls, was that even if Netanyahu were losing by 3 to 4 seats, as it was in the polls, he might still be able to form the government because he'd be able to put a coalition together better. Even if it's a tie, Netanyahu is going to come out ahead.
Now, if Netanyahu does hold on to his job, what obstacles does he face, Matthew? He says no Palestinian state under his watch. What about repairing U.S. relations?
Well, I think his comments basically reflect him pandering at the end of an election to his base, the far right, which he in fact successfully did, as I mentioned, get those votes. So, or he siphoned them away from other parties. As far as repairing the relationship on a political level, the relationship is far deeper than these two leaders, and it will endure. Security cooperation is really good. I don't see how these two, on a personal level, get past it. It's not a personal issue at the core. What it is diametrically opposed viewpoints on the threat posed by Iran, on what is possible in the peace process, and what should be done about the Arab winter swirling around Israel. So it's really more of an issue about it's about the issues a lot more than it is about the personality, even though it's the personality that we see far more.
Real quick before you leave, it's so interesting that regardless of the country, all elections either boil down to national security or the economy. And for Israel, the economy was the main issue this time too, wasn't it?
It was. Just like last time, there is a uniform thought across most of these parties as far as what to do about Iran, what to do about the Palestinian negotiations. What it came down to in this election, by 55% as compared to 30%, it was about social economic issues. It was about the cost of housing, taxes, health care. These were the kind of issues where there are differences between the party. When it comes to Israel's survival, there's not much of a difference between most of these parties.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what develops in the next 12 to 24 hours once they get this coalition, who comes out on top. As we've said, it looks as though it's Netanyahu, but we appreciate your insights. Always good to have you on the show. Matthew Brodsky, Senior Middle East Analyst for Wikistrat. Thanks again, Matthew.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, an update to